This is VSIN Primetime on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on VSIN Primetime, I'm Scott Seidenberg on the Sports Betting Network. Quick updates on the scores in progress right now. Our VSIN Primetime game of the night. The Red Sox have jumped out to an early 1-0 lead over the Yankees here in the second inning. Astros leading the Orioles 2-0. No score between the Cardinals and the Rays. In your NFL preseason action, Panthers with a 3-0 lead over the Steelers. So if you took the Steelers in the first quarter thinking that was your edge, you lost. 3-0 as we start the second quarter. Steelers do have the football, though. Speaking of football, it is week 3 of the NFL preseason. Week 1 of the regular season will be upon us before we know it. It's time to do your fantasy football drafts this weekend here at Circa. It is not only Ultimate Contest sign-up weekend, with everyone coming into town signing up for Circa Millions and Circa Survivor, but several high-stakes fantasy football drafts going on here, including one run by our next guest in studio, the great Michael Fabiano from Sports Illustrated, Locked On Fantasy as well. Now, I understand you have a big-time fantasy draft here this weekend.
Right. My friends, of course, over at Full Time set up a Beat Fabs league.
Okay.
And so people come in and play against me. And I had one person in particular who signed up that kind of caught my eye. Superman, Dean Cain. So I'm like, now I gotta take out Superman in this league.
You should name your team Kryptonite or something.
Lex Luthor, something like that, man. Yeah, crazy. Exactly.
Well, there's been a lot of conversation surrounding fantasy football over the past weeks or so, because obviously this is the time where you want to draft. Most people wait, maybe Labor Day weekend, you wait till the end of the preseason. As we mentioned here at Circa, a lot of drafts going on. Stadium Swim is hosting a bunch of drafts outside as well. The number 1 overall pick, it's Jamar Chase, wide receiver. Some people might, Bijan Robinson is getting a lot of love. Saquon Barkley from last year, of course. We could talk about him. I'm kind of down on Saquon this year.
Me too.
But what's your advice? Because I always tell people, when you have the number 1 overall pick, which I hate, by the way, I would much rather be later in the first round. All you have to do with that number 1 overall pick is not screw it up.
Yeah.
Just play it safe.
Yeah.
Play it safe. What would be your recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase is probably the consensus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bijan Robinson's also in the mix, but Jamar coming off a season with over 400 fantasy points. Now, there's going to be regression. He had 17 touchdowns last year. That is not going to happen again. But in that offense with Joe Burrow, they're going to score a lot of points. Their defense is lousy, so that means that they're going to have to score points on the offensive side of the football. He's ridiculously consistent on the football field from a fantasy perspective. So Chase is going to be your guy, and then Bijan's probably going to be 2. And then there's a group of wide receivers in there like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, who will also be in the mix. But much like you, I'm not into Saquon Barkley this season. One thing that you have to remember is that you want to draft this year's best team, not last year's best team. And as great as Saquon Barkley was last season, you've got to think about all of the statistical trends that are going against him this season. And all of you out there who follow the stats know these. The curse of 370 more touches. He had that. Over 400 carries combined between the regular and postseason. He had that. And 2,000-yard rushers. Did you know that no running back in the history of the NFL who has rushed for 2,000 yards has had fewer than 99 points in terms of a decline in their stats the following season? That was Eric Dickerson. That's the least.
Wow.
So Barkley, whether it's because he's getting injured, whether it's because he had a big workload and all of a sudden it's just harder to get all those touches and be effective, he is going to regress. There's no question about that.
I think it's a tremendous point, especially when you consider the carries throughout the postseason as well, as you mentioned, and just looking at his props this year, just looking at the season-long stuff. I always lean towards unders anyway, because a player gets hurt, you're cashing your under, right? Unders are always the most profitable way to bet when it comes to long-term prop bets. But with a guy like Saquon, even if he doesn't get hurt, I still think the workload is decreased this year. And I always look at teams, and I want your thoughts on this. Yep. Teams that have deep runs into the postseason in all of sports, I think there's a lesson learned when that happens. And they understand what it takes to go through that grind. And they take those lessons and apply it to the next season. And so I look at, a team like the Eagles, and I think there might be some less plays run. Ohio State college football. They understand what it takes to go through that grind of the regular season. I bet Ohio State under 10.5 wins because they understand you don't have to go 12-0. You don't have to push it every single week. You can slow down and prioritize health. We've seen that in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors for years, they knew they were going to get to the playoffs, and so they took a step back in the regular season. Do you think that happens here with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, after the workload that Saquon had last year, I think you almost have to. And that I'm not saying that Will Shipley is going to get 10 carries a game because that's not going to happen.
Will it happen for the whole Eagles team? Like, will we see less tush pushes? Will we see?
Well, I mean, they better use the tush push while they can. I mean, that thing is ridiculous. I mean, nobody can stop it. And that's why Jalen Hurts remains one of the 5 best quarterbacks in fantasy football. He's had the most rushing touchdowns in the last 3 years of any player, not just running backs, all players. He's been phenomenal. So I do think that they're going to take a step back. We also know historically that teams don't win the NFC East back-to-back. Like, we've seen that. It's been, 26 years since that happened? And you always have to think outside the box with the NFL and fantasy football. I always say the only thing that's predictable about it is its unpredictability. And so, like, I'll give you an example. Last season, everyone was on C.J. Stroud. He's going to be awesome. They went out and they got, Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins is awesome. And they got Joe Mixon. And, oh, my God, look at this. It didn't work. And so things on paper don't necessarily mean that it's going to translate onto the field. So keep that in mind. Same thing with Christian McCaffrey. His ADP is rising, and I don't know why. This guy is always hurt. He's missed most of 3 of the last 5 years. When he played last year, he averaged 12 points per game. He only played in 4 games. And the 49ers offense could be a disaster this year because their wide receivers are all banged up. And when I say all banged up, almost everyone but Ricky Pearsall. They had to make a trade for Sky Moore, who was a dud in Kansas City. So I know they're big names and people love big names. Just tap the brake on Saquon and Christian McCaffrey.
The great Michael Fabiano from Sports Illustrated, Locked On Fantasy, joining me, Scott Seidenberg, here in studio on VSIN Primetime as we're getting you ready for your fantasy football drafts and your prop bets for the NFL regular season coming up in a matter of moments. I mean, it's just wild how fast this preseason has gone. Something that I've been very intrigued by is just the amount of scoring that we've seen so far in this preseason. And we know, obviously, the new kickoff rule is changing everything with touchbacks at the 35-yard line. And so if we believe that there's going to be, in last season was a very high scoring season as well. If we believe this year is going to be high scoring as well, are there any teams in particular that you would be looking to play on their players because they could be high scoring teams?
So Arizona's a team that has maybe the easiest schedule based on last year's data of any team in the National Football League. So I'm all in on Kyler Murray. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. has maybe not a huge season, maybe not an elite season, but a very good season. Remember, his old man didn't have a great rookie year either. In fact, their stats were eerily similar when both of them were in their first season. So for me, Arizona's a team that I like. Trey McBride's fantastic. I think they're going to have to score a lot of points. I don't know how great their defense is going to be. They're in the NFC West. So that's a team that I'm targeting. And Kyler, based on where you could get him in fantasy drafts, you're talking about round 8, round 9. I mean, that is like stealing.
Wow. One guy that I'm very high on and a team I'm very high on, I love the Tampa Bay Bucks this year. You mentioned Arizona's easy schedule. The Bucks have a cakewalk of a schedule when it comes to defenses from last year.
Right.
We understand defense might not be sticky from year to year, but if we just go on last year's numbers, the Bucks have a very easy schedule of opponents. I love Bucky Irving this year. I've already bet him at 60-1 to be the offensive player of the year, 25-1 to lead the league in rushing. And the best stat that I can give you is if you look at his explosive run rate, the amount of times he goes for double digits, it is the same 13% mark as Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry.
Right.
The problem is, Bucky had over 100 less carries than those guys last year.
Right, exactly.
I don't think that happens this year. I think he gets the bulk of the carries this year.
And that was the case in the second half of last season because all of a sudden the Buccaneers were like, ooh, we got something here. And even though Rachaad White was a really good fantasy running back the year before, he wasn't really a good real running back when you look at the numbers. So, yeah, Bucky's going end of the first round, second round in most fantasy drafts at this point, and he's going to lead that team. One other player that you want to keep tabs on in Tampa is Emeka Egbuka because Chris Godwin, I don't know when he's coming back. He's had 2 surgeries on that gruesome ankle injury that he suffered last year, and Jalen McMillan got hurt, and he could be out until midseason.
Wow.
And you got Mike Evans, who's tremendous. He's going to the Hall of Fame. There's no question about that, but he's 32. Hasn't shown any signs of breaking down yet, but maybe it happens. I would not be shocked if Ibuka ended up being one of the 2 best rookie wide receivers in fantasy football this season.
With the other one being?
Well, I mean, I mean, listen, we talk about Ted McMillan. We talk about, I don't know if it's going to be Travis Hunter. I'd probably go with Ted Rowe and McMillan.
I'm interested to see what happens with Travis Hunter this year because I think that in that Liam Cohn offense, we're going to have a bounce back from Trevor Lawrence. Michael Fabiano, you check him out on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. Listen to Locked On Fantasy and check his stuff out at SI. Appreciate the time, Michael. Good luck with your draft coming up. And
Anytime.
Tell Superman he's done. Kryptonite.
I wish I had like some kind of Batman outfit that I could wear just to come in there and try to like troll him a little bit.
This is VSIN Primetime here on the Sports Betting Network.